All right. So I definitely recommend Dr. Eli, so much so that she is who I sent my daughter to. Um, and she did a remote session because my daughter is out here in Colorado. And I have definitely used Lorelai's services all of these years since I met you almost 25 years ago. Um, somebody said, oh, Lorelai does astrology. You should go get your chart done with her. And I'm like, what the heck is that? I had no idea what that was. All I knew about astrology is the Sunday paper used to have, a tiny little blurb, and I would read it and go, oh yeah, that sounds like me. Other days I read and go, that's not me. That's ridiculous. That's not me. Anyways, when I went to see Lorelai and she did the whole freaking chart, I learned so much about myself. Not only were there things that were okay, that is, it sounds like me, but there were so many other things that I was like, that's not me. What? Me be a teacher? Me be a whatever, has wisdom, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's not me. I'm not those things. And over the years, Lorelai, you've seen me grow into my chart, huh? It must be fascinating to watch the people whose charts you read and see what's going on with them. And
I just keep thinking, I mean, you're like the consummate teacher, 5 planets in Sag, all the personal planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, and you thought you were in real estate.
that didn't last long. All right, very cool. So good. Dr. Eli put her contact info there. Lorelai and Latanya, make sure you guys do the same. And anybody else who you want people to know what you offer, services. All right, so today is August the 4th, 2021. And I don't know about you, but I am feeling an intensification, like a movement, like this little train is picking up steam and we're moving faster and faster and faster. It's like that little story I used to read to my kids that I'll read to my little grandson, the little, thank you, Lisa, you offer love. I love that. That we need that. The little engine that could, and we were going up the mountain, and chugging, but it's picking up steam. So it's really, really exciting. So before we continue with where we left off in the Course in Miracles, I want to touch base with you guys. How are you doing? How are you feeling? But I want you to share from a place of what the Course is teaching you in terms of the truth of who you are. You are eternal. This entire experience, you chose to be here at this time. So there's nothing that is happening that is not by your knowing ahead of time that you could handle what was here. And love is what you are here to extend. And light, love, light. You have wisdom to bring. You have so much to give. Knowing that that's the truth of who you are, and then seeing the world that we're in, that the Course in Miracles tells us this is the world our ego made up as a way to hide itself from God, as a way to block God. That means as a way to block love and light. So the world seems to be getting darker. As you see what's happening out there, that's what we're waking up to. We're waking up and seeing, oh my God, there is a lot of darkness. And the way we translate darkness, or I like to translate darkness with my understanding of the ego, is corruption. We have a corrupt virus in our computer. We have a virus that corrupts our computer. We have a virus that's corrupting the minds of people, the bodies of people. We have a virus that has corrupted our own awareness of who we are. That's called the ego. So the ego, the COVID, the corruption in government, all of that is the same block to the presence of the love and light that we actually are. If we operated from the truth of who we are and we brought love and light to the planet, we wouldn't have darkness. But we have darkness because we have not been aligned with the truth of who we are, because we have been conditioned out of remembering our truth and conditioned into thinking things that are not true. So with that distinction, because that to me is the power of the Course in Miracles, the two distinctions, ego and your soul, the distinction between love and fear, high frequency, low frequency, expansion, contraction. Once you keep everything into those two categories, the awakening process becomes easier. So with that understanding, share, where are you today? What's going on in your life? Let me mute everybody so we don't have background noise. And then if you want to, Lorelai's had your hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself, please. And then whoever wants to speak after Laura, just unmute yourself. I want to hear from you.
I just wanted to share today, because obviously I've learned so much from the course, but the lesson today, and this is from that workbook that you gave me, Laina, it can, and one of the big things that I've learned is it can be, but myself I crucify. All that I do unto myself. If I attack, I suffer, but if I forgive, salvation will be given me. This is a key theme throughout A Course in Miracles. Everything comes from me, for I am the dreamer of my dream. Others cannot affect me in any way unless I give them that power, making them victimizing figures in order to justify my face of innocence. Thus, they are responsible for my pain until the holy instant of sanity comes when I forgive them for what they have never done. Amen.
What lesson is that, Lorelai, the number?
Today, lesson 216.
216. I'm just going to put it there for anybody who wants to go look at that.
I rest my case.
Well, yes. And, there's a lot of power in that lesson. The title of it, it can be about myself that I crucify. Was that the title of it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still looking it up so I can make sure I wrote, or why don't you put it in there, Lorelai?
Yeah, I'll put it in, sure.
And, it is, that's a very advanced concept in the course. It is but myself that I crucify, but a very necessary concept to understand, because when you realize that we are one, there is one energy here expressing itself in so many different ways. It fragmented to play the game of hide and seek. And when you realize that all of this pain and suffering that you think you see out there, when we're judging somebody, that terrible person, that horrible whatever, we're crucifying ourselves. We are the ones who are that horrible person that hasn't been acknowledged, reflected out there. Thanks so much for that, Lorelai. That's wonderful to realize that. Lisa, go ahead. Thank you so much.
Had I not prepared and have been working this Course in Miracles, these Zoom meetings, reading, these past couple of days, I have just been very emotional, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm just, sometimes I, grieve the loss of my mom. And well, I went to Athens to help my son and his girlfriend move. And God, I just had a holy instance with my my son's girlfriend, and she is so sweet, but I saw so much sadness in her heart. And what we were talking about is about the indoctrination, and her father is very devout, practicing Catholic, and he has separated from his daughter because of her behaviors that were not aligned with his, and totally cut her off financially. And he doesn't even know that my son is living with her, although they have 2 separate dorm rooms. And it just broke my heart, because I can see the pain in her heart, because she just wants the love and the connection. And I was able to sit there and be with her and love her where she was. And I just gave her a big hug. And it was just a wow moment, because it's like our hearts connected. Yeah. And, if I didn't have that awareness through working this course with you, I may have missed a beautiful opportunity. And that brought me to be able to have my son witness the love. Yeah. Even though, we have been distanced, and I told you, I've been trying to communicate with my son for so long. It was just a beautiful day. So thank you.
Lisa, so many things in what you said. So we all want to be accepted. That is, the soul knows that it was created beautiful and should be accepted. that we innately know that as children, that is innate in our knowingness. When the ego takes over and it begins to decide what you've done right or wrong, what's good or bad, what's okay, not okay, the judgments, when the judgments kick in, then the conditions come with it. That's where love becomes conditional. Egoic love is always conditional. If you do it my way, then I'll love you. Well, the one who knows itself naturally that they are okay as they are feels the rejection, and that rejection causes us to close off. So this world is a world that has been for thousands of years. The culmination that we're seeing today is thousands of years of people being rejected. And so we've got victims, and then those who have done the rejecting, which would be the bullies, the aggressors. And that's how humanity has divided itself in the victims and the aggressors, the poor me, somebody rescue me, or the I'm going to tell you what to do, I'm going to be in control of you. So the sadness that you're feeling, actually, I experienced that yesterday, was a day of a lot of emotion for me. The whole planet has to face the aggression that we have perpetrated on one another, and the victimhood that we have allowed ourselves to participate in. So everything that has to do with suffering that comes from the ego is a coin with two sides, the bullies and the victims. You can't have victims without bullies. You can't have bullies without victims. And the victims are the ones who then become the bullies. Generationally, that's what we do. We were victimized by our dad, we're going to victimize our children. So it is a cycle that continues. And what you were doing was you were breaking that cycle with that girl, not only accepting her where she is, but that is a reflection of the healing that's happening in you, because to accept her is to accept yourself. Because just as much as it's only myself that I crucify, it's only myself that I save. And the Course is very clear about that. So salvation comes from me. Our brothers and sisters are a reflection of where I am, crucifying myself or resurrecting myself out of the insanity of the ego mind. So thank you so much for sharing that. Whoever else wants to, please unmute yourself and share. How are you using this Course? How's it showing up? Yes, Laina.
So last week I had an interesting, I don't know, I'm not felt well for the past couple of weeks, and it's just gotten worse and worse. My energy's low. I've just not felt good at all. And so I spent several days over the weekend really disconnecting and resting and just meditating and all that, and reflecting on the Course and really embodying this process. And it's so interesting that, I don't know, it's like something just lifted me up and has dropped me into the fifth dimension energetically. And my energy's back. Of course, I was guided to do a few things to work on my health as well. I was guided to take a product that is either from my dad or my higher levels, not sure. But anyway, I feel so much better. But it's just interesting that now that it feels like I've been dropped into the fifth dimension, and my intuition is all much more cute, and it's interesting. So I've had an interesting week.
I love hearing that. That is happening. What's happening is more of us are experiencing more expansion, because as these energies are coming in, this is, why as above, so below, we are not separate from the cosmos. We're one with the cosmos. So as more of us on this planet begin to open up our eyes and want the truth, more energy of truth is coming in to activate us. So the more that we commit to the truth, the more we begin to feel it, the more we begin to get cleared to receive it. Today, we're at a time when the shifts are happening faster because we're receiving energetic assistance. We don't have to spend, decades in our wounded child stuff. Many people are hearing things, and immediately that is like it's defragmenting the mess in the computer. It's like a quick little delete of old files that is happening. So those who have ears to hear the truth are hearing it, and those who have eyes to see the insanity are seeing it. all of it is operating in tandem. So as more light is experienced, more of the darkness gets seen. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Anybody else? Just unmute yourself. Yes, Christo.
Well, first of all, I've got such a lot from besides everything that you share, beloved Laina, is awesome. And the response that it elicits in people to share, I've got a lot out of that from whenever people speak up, like you're asking now. Sometimes it's like people are speaking to you, you know. And I know I think it was last week, I remember something which I always think of freedom. With freedom comes responsibility. And someone said, it might have been you, Vern, said that the responsibility, with responsibility is freedom. And that's, you know, it's a double-edged way of looking at it, which is great. If you tackle the responsibility, you get freedom. And it's true. I've experienced that. So, and then something else came across my path. I don't know in which conversation that relates to the things that we talk about, is, and I wrote it down, the best way to predict the future is to create the future. And that resonated with me, so I thought I'd share that as well. That's taking responsibility for one's life, you know, and which is what we're talking about. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yes, yes, my beloved Christo, whom I miss so much. I will see you soon. Yes, what you just stated is not only what the Course in Miracle wants us to understand, that we the future, we are the ones who are creating it. We've just been creating our future as a repetition of the past, because the mind got programmed with the way the ego operates. The ego operates in a loop. It's repetitive. It doesn't know anything new. It's not creative. The ego repeats. Something works for it, it repeats it. Even if it's detrimental, it only knows to repeat. So the Course in Miracles is attempting to get us to understand that when we see the mindset of the ego and we see that there's nothing good about it, there's absolutely nothing that is enjoyable about the ego. Of course, when you're in it, you think that being righteous and judging people, and that feels good because it's a temporary feel good, because there's not a anchoring in real peace. So the temporary pleasure of the high of being right, if that's what it thinks that it is good. Anyways, the Course wants us to empty our mind of the ego belief thought system and align with the thought system of God, because when we do, new information comes in, the new songs that have never been written, the new formulas that have never been, the new inventions, the new ideas, all creativity comes from God. And when we open up our mind to receive that creativity, we are going to create something that's never been before. God does not repeat. So from that perspective, when the mind is not repeating the past, we will be creating what we are thinking about, because what we think about, we bring about. If we're thinking repetitive problems, and I don't have enough money, and I'm not loved, and I'm miserable, and it's a corrupt world, and it's going to hell in a handbasket, that's what we're going to create. But if we clear up our mind from the past, and God, what would you have me do? I'm ready to receive creativity. Inspire me. All of a sudden, there's going to be something new coming in. That is what creates the new future. But it has to be deliberate to align with that which is good for the greater good, because that's the only way that God operates. It has to be for the greater good of all. The ego is always the greater good for me. So thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, Vern. Let's see.
Hello. I'm on, I guess.
Oh, hold on, Jody. Vern's
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Come on
that's
after
okay.
Vern.
Yeah, that's not a big deal. Two quick things. Number one, perceived conflict is a absolute cry for creativity. That's the go-to. And the minute you perceive conflict, it's a cry for creativity. And that's the system we're built in. Our go-to is always to go to be creative. If we're aware of that, if we understand what that is. It's like when, when people say, I desire something, I desire this, I desire that, I want, I want, I want. Well, the word desire basically means to sire, which means to create. When we sire a horse, then you create another horse. That's what you do. So it's so powerful to understand it. What I want to talk about just for a minute is last Wednesday night. First of all, you did a fantastic job. I think everybody acknowledges that. Kudos from everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
I will tell you this. I hope that you did record that, especially the interaction you had with the lady towards the end, when she just couldn't understand coming from a position of love and still being able to address the challenges and the fears that she had, and how am I going to deal with this? Because I'm going to tell you right now, there's a lot of juice in that interaction between you and her. I would spend a couple hours listening to that and pulling out the gems, because you see, one of the things that I'm looking at right now, it's one thing to be in a dialogue with people that are totally contra to you. I mean, like totally contra as to where you position on something, okay? But when you get two people that supposedly are in the same position, and it's the way they're going to approach it, there's where the work needs to be done. And, I'm sitting there and I'm listening. I just wanted it to go on forever. I didn't want it to end. Just when it was getting right to that point where, somebody's going to have to, acknowledge some things and work with some stuff. And I'm finding this so much in Lorelei or in the Course in Miracles on Sunday mornings. And, I brought that up even in that class. I said, it seems every time we get right to the point where it gets really, something can really come out of this interaction, well, it's time to move on to something else. And we never get. So you got that, and you let that lady, I mean, the way you, again, master facilitation, intention of love, holding space for her, allowing her to be authentic, supporting her in her lack of understanding of your position. I mean, all of those things, that's a training right there. That video right there, that interaction between you and her should be cut into a video of some type, so when people say, well, I don't know how to talk to these people about what's going on, about what I feel, when they're addressing things. But here you find a group of about, I guess it was what 80 people there, something like 80, 100 people there, supposedly all on the same side. And you saw the different positioning there that was so different. And one thing I've learned is that you better get clarity. If you got a group, you better get clarity around the group before you go out and talk to other groups about your position. And the opportunity was right there. And I just want to give you kudos on that. I hope that you did record that. Like I said, there's just so much in that interaction. And I hope that you will pull from that and as we move forward, because that's a training that I think needs to occur. And I got so much out of it just by listening to the interaction. And my heart went out to her. I never felt more open and more compassionate towards somebody, because I heard her authenticity, even with her in her challenge to you. I could hear her confusion and her fears and her authenticity, and that was so powerful. I just wanted to acknowledge that.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, I had a gal right at the front table with my phone, and she recorded it in pieces, in segments. So I do have that. So I do want to share, and Kathy, we'll come to you right after Jody. I do want to share, and I think it might have been because of a conversation that Angela had with that lady afterwards. She went and talked to her. And I believe Angela suggested that she come and talk to me, and she did. And when she came and talked to me, what I would have liked to have said to her in front of everybody, but it's the way that it works. And I said it to her by herself. She said, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to be so, contradicting you or antagonizing you. And I said to her, no, it's perfectly okay. And I said to her, how did it feel to you to have me talk to you the way that I did, to stay in my kindness. How did that feel to you when you were arguing with what I was sharing? And she said, you know, it was really amazing. You were just so, it just floored me that you were not pushing back or telling me to whatever. And I said to her, that is the point. If you can be that for somebody who's arguing with you, you will, you know, it disarms them. It gives them, maybe not in that moment, but later on they'll think about it. In that moment, you probably weren't thinking, oh, she's being so nice to me. You were pushing. After it ended, you had an opportunity to think about it, and then you came to apologize. That is what this is all about. If we can stay kind, no matter what the other person is doing, it is what shifts the you know, what's going on. So I just wanted to share that little bit because I did have that opportunity to say that to her. So thank you for that. So yes, Miss Jody, and then after Jody, Kathy, please.
Oh, hey, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Hi there. Hi, everybody. I came in a little bit late, and I have been, I think the question was what did you say? You said, what are you taking from the Course in Miracles? And I'm sorry I missed, it sounds like you had some sort of course, or online thing. I don't know what you did.
It was a talk.
But it sounded amazing.
I was a speaker.
I am reaching out to my mighty companions to say that I feel really fucked up. I mean, it's like I'm stuck in between this 5D knowingness and this egoic stuckness in the moment. Like I feel really fucked up and I know better, but I can't, it's like I can't seem to find the portal and in the moment. And I don't like it because, you know, it's like I walk around and I know that we're just, you know, it's like one of my best friends in the world is transitioning and I'm totally fine with that. He's just dying with grace and he's amazing. And he's just been a soul brother for life. And like, so it's like, I know from that level of, I know from a knowingness perspective, I'm clear, like there's certainty about who I am, but yet I feel myself on that scale, like I'm living somewhere below the line and I don't fucking like it. So I just wanted to reach out and just say that.
Well, when we start reading, there's going to be a line that is going to be just for you that will acknowledge where you are. But before we get to that, what I want to acknowledge is that you are recognizing that most people can't say, I know this, but I'm experiencing that. And that is part of self-awareness, aware that we do know that we are loving beings, that God created a planet that is really truly paradise. That's what it was. The creation of this world is for it to be the Garden of Eden. But we have fucked it up because we have blocked the voice of God. We're not listening to God and we want to do it our own way. So what is happening is the necessary awareness of these two choices so that we can choose again and again and again. So when you're inside of the place where you're feeling discomfort, the acknowledgement of the discomfort and recognizing that it's coming from a mind that is in that moment wandering, it's the ego has taken you down a path of confusion. It's for you to forgive yourself for forgetting in that moment to have aligned with the voice for God. It's an ongoing, it's the law of 1,000,000 times. Maybe it's the law of 2,000,000 times where we have to do it over and over and over again, because every time we shift to God, even if it's for a nanosecond, we experience the efficacy of aligning with God. We feel the second of peace, the 2 seconds of clarity. And that's what we want to practice over and over and over again until 1 second turns to 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. And before you know it, you're in there for a day. And next thing you know, it's a week. And before you know it, you've been in there for months, and you look back and go, wow, I haven't had an egoic reaction. My ego hasn't hijacked me for very long. And that's how you prove to yourself that all of the power to experience love or fear, clarity or confusion is yours by the choice to just shift. That is what is so important, that every one of us recognize our sovereignty is gained through our decision to own the truth of who we are. And the only way you know how powerful you are is when you deliberately choose to stop feeling bad, when you deliberately choose to stop being in confusion. And that practice intensifies like exercising. Ask Laina, she's into nutrition and fitness. She knows it's never one and done. It's the same thing with our awakening. It's ongoing. So thank you for being here and giving us the opportunity to have you in our midst, so that our clarity, our the nuggets of wisdom that we gain through the collective frequency that we are in resonance in, we are all marinating in that. So thank you, Jody, because your confusion is my confusion, is Christo's confusion, it's Kat's confusion. It's the same confusion. And I really honor you for stating that. Thank you, sister. All right, Latanya. And welcome, Latanya. This is, I know, your first time here with us. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here. I just wanted to I guess, take the time to join in on the meeting to see what it was about and go from there. But I wanted to mention that this year for me, my mantra has been to, let go of the ego. And we're all born into this egoic place. I mean, it's like, that veil. And we have to learn and then wake up and then to trust God.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been I have been purposefully trying to trust God at least since January. Up until that point, I felt like I had been trusting God, but I had myself in there. I had my own understanding. I had my own thing that I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to do this and this and this. And then after all that has happened, then I will look to God and say, oh, is everything okay? First things first, trying to let go of that ego. I know it's tough because you've always been trusting yourself. And my purpose now is service to others. Service to others. And I believe I've been learning that service to others is God. Now, service to self, it's just ego. So we won't want to do that. I'm thinking that my circle has changed. Everything around me has changed when I've started to do service to others and trying to trust God. People have come into my life, have been so smart, good, resourceful people. And as soon as I let go, all these things have come. And I've just been so happy, so happy. So I am a teacher. Now it seems that I have to shift my teaching now that I'm into Reiki and trying to live in my purpose of being a healer. I can teach that. So that is my purpose. I found it. So now what I'm trying to do is just keep myself surrounded by people who will nourish that. And I can help them too, and they can help me. So I'm just looking forward to the journey.
Oh, that's just so beautiful. And to your point, until we understand the ego, we cannot know God. It's just not possible. And as you said, we think we are our ego, it's our identity. And as a matter of fact, I just secured a location in Roswell where I'm going to start doing some live events again, classes. I'm going to do social so that we can come together, like-minded people, and just get together for just a social period, just to come together and talk and connect. but also the first class that I'm going to teach, the first full one day class is an in-depth exploration of the ego according to the Course in Miracles. I'm going to do an introduction to the ego. It's going to be like Ego 101, basic ego basics. One night is going to be on a Thursday night, and then an all-day Saturday will be the entire day of looking at the ego and looking at it in ourselves, because that is crucial. And you were saying two things that you said that I want to mention. One is that you want to align with God, and to get to know God, we need to know what blocks it, which is the ego, ego, edging God out. But that lady that was having, such a beautiful moment exchange with me the other night, she said, yeah, I trust God. I believe God. I do God's words to that effect. And so many Christians, and I'm just using this because they consider themselves followers of Christ. They consider themselves believers of God. But when they are in fear, when they are upset with their fellow brothers and sisters, they don't know God. That is what the ego is. It has edged God out, but it's so necessary. One of the characteristics that we all have to cultivate to be able to allow our relationship with God to be established is honesty. And we have to learn what is, in truth, what is God. And our idea of God is some kind of, a person on a cloud up there somewhere, like Santa Claus deciding we're naughty or nice. And we've been taught that we got to go to it to beg, to please, save me, help me. Why are you letting me suffer so much? Why did you create so much suffering in this world? And God didn't create any suffering. The suffering is our blocking God. The suffering is our decision to do it ourselves and not as God wants us to do it. And God only wants us to be what we are, which is loving. So there is a training that comes with that. But that I only was able to understand, to really know God and feel God, when I saw my ego and began to watch what my ego was blocking. Because when my ego wasn't blocking anything, it was an automatic feeling God. The other thing that you said about being in service to others, this spiritual journey, the journey to self-awareness, you don't have to really be spiritual to be on a journey to truth. We call it that, but somebody who wants to become self-actualized, self-realized, is to come to know the truth of who they are. We are going to go through a process that to others is going to appear like we're being selfish, we're being self-centered. It's all about me, it's all about me. But it is a necessary process. And the way that I like for people to think about it is, what others see as you becoming self-centered is you really becoming centered in your self, your higher self, capital S self. When you are centered in yourself, the only way you can be authentically you is in service to others, because then you automatically know that you are one with all that is. So the service to others comes because it's good for yourself. Back to what Lorelei said, when it's always you that you crucify, it's always you that you save. So service to others is service to self, but it's the capital S self that does that, because it's no longer about what can I get. The Course in Miracles says that giving and receiving are one. When we give from our full cup, we receive because it replenishes itself. We don't have to do anything. It keeps coming. It just keeps on coming. So thank you for your shift. And I know you are no longer going to be a teacher in the public school system because you saw, you had the ears to hear and the eyes to see, and you decided no more. Well, I'm so glad that you knew that all that teaching preparation is just to shift you in what you're going to be teaching. The Course in Miracles says that we teach what we most want to learn. So all teachers are really teaching what they're learning. So as you deepen your awareness of the truth of who you are, of course, you're going to be an even better teacher because of the congruency of the lesson and the sharing it. Thank you so much, Latanya. All right, Miss Eli. Let's see. There you
Hey,
go. Hello.
I am Hey, I'm driving and I apologize for
No worries.
any bad signals or background noise. So I listened to one of your videos recently and it was such a light bulb moment for me because you and I'm a visual person, so I really appreciated this because you drew out on a whiteboard 5D versus 3D. And the light bulb went off for me. Oh, okay. Part of the challenge between me and my son is I'm operating in 5D and he's in 3D. And it just, I don't know why I didn't realize that earlier, but how do you, I'd love to hear your insight on how to approach teenagers who are in the 3D. I guess is my
Yeah. Well, that's
question.
that's a wonderful question, and it really applies to anybody. Your son, your sister, your brother, your coworker, anybody, it doesn't really matter. And somebody who's in 3D is really somebody who's operating with old beliefs. And if there are children, we are the ones who program them with that information. We assisted in the inputting of the viruses that keep them in that egoic place. And the only way to really know that one is in 5D is through our acceptance of those who are in 3D exactly where they are, because that acceptance is what allows those in 3D to begin to let go of the resistance that allows them to open up to be able to hear what somebody else has to say. And especially in intimate relationships and with our children, we as parents, because I know I had to do this. I was a 3D mom for, my daughter and I just had the conversation this morning for her first 14 years of life. I didn't really begin to understand about my ego until she was 14 years old. So I enter conversations with her when we're talking about any of her angers or resentments or whatever it might be with, I accept full responsibility for what I did. I knew not what I was doing. I've forgiven myself for that. Can you please forgive me? And now she definitely forgives me because she wants to be operating in that 5D place. So with both of us forgiving ourselves, we enter into a conversation as equals, where the 3D, 5D parent issue, where I see a lot of parents who think that they're 5D and their kids are 3D, but oftentimes it's actually the reverse. And where you can tell that is wonky is if we think we know better than our kids. We have got to realize that they're all masters. Everybody here is a master. The Course in Miracles made that so clear to me. We are all in the presence of a master. Either they remember that or they don't. This is why in the Course in Miracles, and I've seen this in other teachings that are also channeled by Jesus that are in the family Course in Miracles, because he mentions Course in Miracles in those other books. Jesus says, the only difference between you and me is that I know who I am and you don't know who you are. We are, you can see me as an older brother that maybe has a little more experience than you do. You can see me as a best friend who is wanting to share with you what I have learned. But when I read that, I got it, that as a parent, I need to see my children as my equals. And when we begin to try and operate from a higher frequency with our children when they're being ornery and definitely sticking, grounding themselves in their opinion, we really need to begin to let them know, hey, I'm so grateful that you have your own opinion. I really like that you think for yourself. Is it all right with you if I share what I am learning? Because when we can treat our children with that level of respect, it helps them rise into a new relationship. We are literally, we become a tuning fork at a higher frequency, and that brings them in resonance to that higher frequency, because everybody, back to what Lisa said earlier, everybody wants to be accepted. And once somebody's accepted where they are, like the lady the other night, if we accept them, we get where you are, we get that you're angry, I totally respect that and acknowledge that. When that is established, now the door opens up between equals to have conversations, and the sharing becomes absolutely magical. And that is, those of us who understand, have a conscious awareness of what 5D consciousness is. It's nothing more than being the presence of love, being compassionate, being gentle, honest, being defenseless. There is a total shift into equality that happens when we go into that 5D consciousness. So back to what Krista was saying, the old world in the 3D world is a hierarchical world of father knows best, mother knows best, boss knows best, president's in charge knows best. That kind of a world of hierarchy is what has us in division, in battles, in having to prove ourselves. And back to what I said earlier, the two sides of the same coin, the victim and the bully. Typically the parent is the bully and the child is the victim, until they have their children, and then it flips. They become the bully, and the child, their children, becomes the victim, which is why we perpetuate the same old programs. 5D is creating a whole new world, and we are the ones who are creating that new earth by beginning to treat each other that way, because in that new frequency of being with others, we're sending out a ripple frequency. And what is happening is we are attracting people, like Latanya was saying. You begin to attract people, and the new earth, the 5D earth, is being created by those who operate with inequality and are willing to hear, to give and receive, are willing to take what others are saying and use it. And how does this piece of the puzzle, your piece of the puzzle, fits with my piece of the puzzle? If it doesn't, no big deal, no worries. In collaboration and co-creation is how we are going to co-create this new earth. And you get to do that right there in your home with your child. But start with recognizing that you're equals, and start by being honest, and letting him know, I don't know everything, and I want to know more of what you know, so that I can become more clear about where you are, and you can have an opportunity to know where I am. And really, Eli, that's where it has to start, to bring them up.
So what, from your chart, what helped me identify it was, he's operating in fear. And
Exactly.
I've always been a faith-filled person. I learned that I had a father, and he taught me faith from a very young age. And so I feel like Jack is learning this from the media. Like, the fear that he's expressing is learned from either school or the media, because that's why I've always, this whole year and a half, I've not understood any of it, because I'm so grounded in faith that none of it made sense to me. Like, when you have faith, there's nothing to worry about, and I've kind of always been that way. So it's this fear that he's operating, mostly out of fear.
Yeah.
So I don't know if.
Well, that is, fear and faith are two opposite frequencies. So he has faith. He just has faith in fearful things. And that is something that is really necessary. Thanks, Kathy, for joining us. And glad that you're going to have your roof replaced. I'm sure that's a good thing. So he has faith in fearful things. So meet him there. Meet him in the place of, sweetie, I've noticed that you're afraid of something that I'm not afraid of. Is it all right if I share with you where my faith comes from? And is it all right if I share with you why that doesn't scare me? Because when we allow them to be where they are, then they are open to what it is that we have to share. But if we say, oh my gosh, you're listening to the media, not that that's what you're saying, but it's what I was saying when I was an unconscious parent. You shouldn't listen to that media. It's teaching you things that are fearful. They're not telling you the truth. That will make them lock down and defend their position faster, because the ego wants to be right. So there's no room for hearing another perspective. And that's where just, as an equal, honey, I hear what you're saying. May I share another perspective? When we can treat our children, not that we know better, but that we just have different information to share like we would with a friend, it does give them the opportunity to open up. So thank you so much for your question, Eli. And that's what the Course in Miracles is helping us. It's helping us understand more of, let me plug in my computer here, helping us understand more of what's possible. So let me go to Vern. Vern, were you going to share, whether it's separate or maybe add to that? Go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What I just wanted to say is that an add-on in a sense, for me, what's important is what I'm learning from all this is that I need to maintain that space, even if the other person is not giving me that space. Yes. In other words, that's crystal. In other words, it's easy for me to be loving and light and everything else when the other person's being that for me. And when I am that way and I expect the other person to come back with love and light and everything else, that's the opportunity I have to understand. And that's where the understanding comes in that says, okay, can I maintain my authenticity of who I say I am and how I see the world, even though the individual I'm interacting with, okay, does not see it that way, and has passion and feelings about their position. This is, these are some of the tools, in preparation as we're moving forward, because I believe the encounters like you had the other night is just the tip of the iceberg as to what we're all going to have to be able to interface with. And for me, I'm looking at now, I want to start going to some meetings where people are sort of aligned with me, not so much on just a political level, but more on a sovereignty level, on a patriotic level and that. And I realize that when I get there, not everybody's going to be willing to play, okay, at that level. And can I walk into the lion's den, okay, with people that will say to me, they believe and want the same thing that I want. So we're aligned there, but how do we get it? And how do we work together with each other to move something forward? I mean, this is, I can't, that learning that skill set is just as important as learning anything else right now. How do you
agree.
Do your own work, get yourself to a point where you're functioning at a congruent level for who you are and who you say you are and how you want to be. Then you have to, because you have to be in the world, not of it, but you still have to go out in the world. And if the only place I can go in the world is where there's love and light and everybody loves me, okay, then was it when Jesus went out where he went into the areas where nobody was going to go at and maintain his space. I mean, what a wonderful concept to be able to be. And the ultimate test of congruency, I believe, is put yourself, I used to say, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience. But if I can't have that downtown New York City at noon with everything else going around me, I'm sorry, I have not come close to arriving at the point that I thought I was at. So I just wanted to just add that on. I think it's just maintaining that space. Yes. And that's boot camp. You want to do a weekend, you want to do a one-day program, whatever. Just how do you maintain?
Yeah. And that's been totally, that is part of the teachings. That is why I love to teach and share, because what I've learned and what allowed me to stay there more, because it has been a practice. This didn't happen overnight. Those of you who've known me a long time have seen the increasing of my soul presence and the decreasing of my egoic presence, because that happens. It's like a seesaw. When we're born, we're pure soul, and little by little the seesaw shifts. And the journey back into your true self, to get centered in yourself, the seesaw shifts, and it's always in tandem. You are 40% in your soul, you are 60% in your ego, and vice versa. It is always in tandem. So one of the visuals that I used for myself was that I used to, when I realized that we all have an energy field, we think that our soul is in our body, but our body is in our soul. Our soul, we have a field that extends about 8 meters. So you're talking 4 feet around you. If you get to the place that you want to hold your light when you go somewhere, you may not be, I've got 24 feet of light extending, but at least extend it 1-2 feet out of you. Maybe start with a hula hoop. Most of us say, oh yeah, I've got light in me. Extend it out. When you're consciously being the light, being a hula hoop worth of light, your conscious awareness is on holding that light in a way that it's extending forward. It is really crucial that we recognize that what I have discovered, the ego gets spiritualized. And when the ego thinks I'm all love and light, we give ourselves permission to think we're love and light and actually be a bull in a china shop. I know I've done that. With all my love and light, I was mean and ruthless and a nasty bitch, all in love and light. And it's not until you're no longer professing love and light, but you just are love and light, that you actually are making a difference in the world for others. Otherwise, you're just giving them an example of why I don't want to bother with all these teachings. And my kids used to tell me that, Mom, why should I learn what you're doing? Look how mean you're being. I should be spiritual and you're being, so mean. And nothing like your kids to really give you a mirror and call you out on your own bullshit. So practice with a hula hoop and then extend it out, because you're right, Vern. It's okay for us to have all of these ideas about what we want to do and what's happening in the world and how we want to participate and never leave our home. We can be, what is that called? Armchair quarterback. I think that's the term. We've got to get out there. If you're feeling called to it, get out there and connect with people, and you will see how love and light you are once you get into the conversations, especially with those who are love and light and think that they're patriots. It's a fascinating thing. Jody, were you going to say something? If you were, Jody, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, yes. I do have a question. So, to my core and my essence, I'm very joyful and fun. And I usually live that way. Like, one of the reasons I love living where I live right now is because I'm having an adventure and I'm living in a very depressed, from 3D world area, got on a drug street and, it's like, and my ex-husband who lives below me, and it's a whole nother story, but he doesn't ever go outside. He used to always do the lawn and stuff like that. And I go outside and I just send these people love and light, and I'm just my joyful self, and I'm enjoying that. That I shifted it kind of early on when I moved here, but what's fascinating to me, and the question I have is like, I am that, but how can I be that? And it's just mind blowing, because how can I be that? I shifted from earlier when I shared, but how can I be that person that I really am, probably more than 60% of the time? And then, be suffering, because I live in trust. I live in adventure. I live in the moment. I'm not, it's like I'm not creating from the ego most of the time, and I'm not repeating patterns anymore, which I'm so grateful for. So I'm just living in this 100% trust. I'm love. I'm this. I'm that. And then I suffer, like I shared earlier. And I'm like, how can someone go on a journey so far and so deep, and then be like tripped out? It just doesn't make sense. It makes me feel bipolar.
Well, it is. We all go through that bipolar process because, you're moving from one spectrum to the other, and you're going to be in the middle at some point. When you're on a seesaw, sometimes we kind of get stuck in the middle. We don't go anywhere. We feel bipolar. Something has to give. And the only way to stay in that place of experiencing the love and the light that you are naturally is to be mindful of the thoughts in your head. That's why the Course in Miracles is a course in mind training. Somewhere in your mind, there is a judgment going on. And whether it's judgment of self or judgment of others, that judgment is what clouds perception. It's what creates condemnation. If you're condemning yourself or others are suffering. So suffering is always the result, the effect of the cause. The cause is a thought in your mind that is not a loving thought. So that's where honesty kicks in. Honestly, sit down and say, okay, I'm feeling really uncomfortable right now. What is it that I'm thinking? What belief must I be having right now that is causing this to happen? Just notice what is around you. What are you thinking about those things? And take an inventory of the thoughts, and they are going to reveal to you how you are creating the suffering, because the ego is insidious. It's in your subconscious mind. And it's thinking thoughts that are not in your conscious awareness. You're not even aware of what you're thinking, but if you're suffering, there's thinking going on. It's just below the surface. So it's that constant vigilance. Let me get into this section, and you're going to hear a little bit about this from the Course in Miracles. So we're still in chapter 21. I don't know how many more times it'll take us to complete section number 2, which is the responsibility for sight. As Vern had said, Vern, I forget what you said that Christo said. With responsibility comes, or with sovereignty comes responsibility, I think is what you had said. With freedom comes responsibility. The Course in Miracles tells us the same thing.
Total freedom demands total responsibility. And the degree you give up responsibility, you give up your freedom.
Thank you. Will you type that in the chat so that everybody can have that? That is just so perfect. So the Course in Miracles basically says the same thing, in different words, but the same thing, because truth is truth no matter what. And if you want to not suffer, you've got to take responsibility for your loving thoughts. You have to deliberately think in alignment with what is letting you own your sovereignty, your independence. So when you're looking at places that you are feeling scared of somebody, who have you given power to? Because if you're afraid of somebody, you've given up your sovereignty. That means you're not being responsible for it in that moment. But the Course also gives us forgiveness. We forgive ourselves for forgetting in that moment. And then go and find out, where did this get programmed? Was it programmed to me as a child to give my power away to my parent? Was it programmed to me in church to give my power away to the Pope? Was it programmed to me in school to give my power away to the teacher? We have to excavate and find out, where did this come from? Not that we need to know where everything came from, but we have to have a good general sense that everything comes from somewhere else. Not one of us naturally has ego thoughts. It's just not part of our true nature. It is something that we learn. And we need to figure out the genesis of it, just so that our mind can be clear. Oh, that's a thought that I learned from grandma. Oh, that's a thought that I learned from so-and-so. You know what? That's a hand-me-down belief. I don't want it anymore. The responsibility is to take an inventory of what is not my natural thought and release it. So in that section 2 inside of chapter 21, the responsibility for sight, let's go to paragraph number 9. So we have already said that wishful thinking is how the ego deals with what it wants to make it so. There is no better demonstration of the power of wanting, and therefore of faith, to make its goal seem real and possible. And I know Eli just left, but here we're talking about faith. Faith in the unreal leads to adjustments of reality to make it fit the goal of madness. So her son has faith in the fear that he's watching. So many of us have faith in external things making us better, faith in somebody loving us and making us feel good, faith in, because the ego operates with this idea that I'm going to have what I want if I have faith in this thing coming to me, or faith in that thing making me feel good, which is a distraction from faith internally, faith that there is nothing missing. But we have all been conditioned that we have to acquire to become. It's very, very challenging to accept, which is why you have to be grounded in your higher self, centered in your true self, and accept that you are whole and complete. So when we're on this journey and we're crossing that bridge from the 3D world to the 5D world, from unconscious to conscious, we are so, we can't say, oh yeah, we can say I'm whole and complete, but to actually feel our wholeness in our completeness is very challenging to a mind that's been conditioned in, well, I need to get that to be okay. I need to get that to complete me. You know, Jerry Maguire, thank you so much. I need you, you complete me. So the mind has faith in things that are temporary and that never will be ultimately satisfying, because the ego operates on wishful thinking. Oh, I wish I had this. I wish I had that. True faith is, I know I have it. And then the journey is between the discrepancy from the one to move to the other. So the goal of sin induces the perception of a fearful world to justify its purpose. The goal of sin, and let's remind everybody, the Course in Miracles is saying sin is nothing more than an error. We made a mistake. So the goal of the error, which is the goal of the mistaken identity of thinking we're something other than how God created us, is something that the ego has. It has a goal to become its own God, which is a block to what God really is. So it induces the perception of a fearful world. Well, if I want to be, let's say an identity, I'll use one of mine. I wanted to be the successful realtor, and I had this wishful thinking, I'm going to become this, I'm going to have that, I'm going to make this much money, I'm going to be the top realtor, whatever it was. In this wishful thinking of becoming something, I always operated in the back of my mind. I didn't know it at the time, but subconsciously, I was never enough. I never had enough. I could never experience fulfillment. I used to be one of those people. Even before I was a realtor, I was a salesperson. I was regularly the salesperson of the year. I mean, that was like a normal thing for me. I could sell ice to an Eskimo. But I was never satisfied. It was never enough. I never felt like I accomplished. Then there was the next goal. Because the ego operates, it induces the perception of a fearful world to justify its purpose, to justify the ego's purpose in me, that I'm not enough. It creates an experience of a fearful world that I'll never be able to achieve this, that I won't be able to sell enough and get enough and make enough and become enough. So this journey of total freedom demands that we take total responsibility for every single freaking thought in our head, because every thought has power. And we have thoughts that we will not find until certain stages in our development, because there are thoughts that hold us on every single level of development, and we won't discover it until we have an irritation that brings it up. Those of us right now who are clear that we are patriots, we are recognizing that we want our country to remain a free country. Not only are we realizing that who we are is sovereign as God created us, but we also have to participate in the maintaining of that sovereignty in this country. So we are discovering, and I'm sure each and every one of you can raise your hand because you probably will agree with this. We are discovering beliefs about ourselves that we didn't even know that we had before. I had no beliefs about the Constitution. I really didn't have thoughts about our founding fathers up until I began to have these conversations. I had no ideas of how little I understood about the history of, let's say, things like the Federal Reserve. I thought the Federal Reserve was part of the government. And then I discover, wait a second, it's not. It's an independent institution. It's an independent business with its own board, not beholden at all to the government. And then I had to encounter the idea when I'm hearing Dr. Fauci and blah, 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 all these people quoting the CDC. And then I had a conversation with somebody who enlightened me and said, well, you know, the CDC is it's an independent business. I'm like, what? They're not a department of our government? They were like, no, it's totally independent. And I like, well, then why are we listening to them? If they're independent and they have their own, you know, they have patents on these things that they so, you know, say that this is a good thing, this is vaccine, whatever is helpful. So I had to face beliefs that I had no idea I needed to discover. So as we're moving through this journey, the people who are most afraid of what is happening are most afraid because they're the most ignorant of how the system works. So if you're dealing with somebody who is in terror of dying of, you know, the next variant, whatever that is, their fear for their body is going to keep them from hearing the truth about the way the system is set up, the CDC and the PCR test. They can't hear that because they're in survival for the body. So you can't have a conversation with somebody that is attempting to get them to see clearly that which clouds their perception and has them in confusion and in fear when they are in survival mode. So this is part of understanding how you are coming to clear up your mind, because yes, we have wishful thinking to get well. That's what the ego does. Oh yes, I wish, you know, I would get better. But it is operating with beliefs that the better comes from the outside and that the authority is the CDC and the authority is something other. They're not prepared to look at how none of that is ultimately accurate until they can feel that they're safe in your presence. I totally get it that you're afraid of catching that. You know, I completely understand that. Can I share with you how it is that I came to not be afraid of the variant? Well, that might be more interesting than, well, you shouldn't be listening to the CDC because the CDC it's an independent business. Find the place to connect with somebody, and it's usually at the place where they are in fear, and it's a fear that you have transcended. Simply by sharing, hey, that was something I used to be concerned with before. Because then we're meeting our brothers at the same place where we would have liked somebody to meet us. Do unto others as you'd like them to do unto you. And that is only possible, I think, when you begin to understand the way the ego operates. So the ego has them in a perception that the world out there is where all the fears are. And when you say, I used to have that fear and I don't have that fear anymore, guess what you just said? You just said, oh, I'm in charge of my fears in here. Now, all of a sudden, you're giving them like hope. How can that be? Then he goes on to say, what you desire, you will see. And if its reality is false, you will uphold it by not realizing all the adjustments you have introduced to make it so. What you desire, you will see. We are what we think we are. Your thoughts create your reality. I don't know how many ways we need to say it, but it is the same thing. If you are at the place where you are at that Jesus place, that you know what's really going on, you know that all of this is happening in the mind of God. You know that what you are is that energy field, 8 feet that extends out of you. That's what you are. You're not this physical body. This physical body is a manifestation inside of that field for a desire to have an experience as a separate person, to express God individualized through this point of awareness. So if you operate with knowing that you are this non-physicalness, you will be able to then begin to use your mind to create for yourself a different reality. But it has to begin with the realization, as it says right here, what you desire, you will see. We project everything that we see. We desired, because we got indoctrinated this way, for the doctor to know better for our body. We got indoctrinated with needing the government to take care of us with our Social Security or our whatever. We got indoctrinated with so many things that are not true, and we have created it. So the world out there is the result of our believing that it is so. So how do you take the power from the government? By no longer believing it has power over you. So you've got to come back in here and recognize, once you're no longer afraid of the government, you're no longer afraid of the police, and you just recognize, oh, it's a projection of something that I was taught. Again, who taught me that belief? Who made me fearful of the government? Well, I'm sure it was my mom or my dad. Oh, if I don't get my taxes done, we're going to get in trouble. Do you realize that taxes are illegal? Income taxes are illegal. They're not even something that can be imposed upon the American people. But we have all been terrorized into thinking that the IRS is going to come after you, because they go after people. And when you're afraid, you believe it's true. They came after you and you're scared. But when you realize that actually, no, it's not it's not allowed. This country was founded in not being taxed on our income. Now that we get taxed on consumption, that's a whole different story. But we are not supposed to be taxed on our income. Is supposed to be our income, totally ours. It's craziness. Okay, so paragraph 10. This is what I wanted Jody to hear. Jody, if you're still here, oh, you might have dropped off. All right, so paragraph 10. When vision is denied, confusion of cause and effect becomes inevitable. Vision is clearly knowing who you are and extending it out. So when you know you are eternal, and you walk around this world knowing this is a temporary experience here, because I manifested this body to be here temporarily for one lifetime. But what I am is beyond this physical vessel. It's this energy field that extends beyond me. Your vision is you seeing rightly. So responsibility for sight, that's what this section is all about, is taking complete responsibility for your freedom. Means that you need to know you're not a body, you are free. So if your body is experiencing, let's say, cancer, well, at some level, it is something you wanted to experience. Not saying that you said, oh yeah, I want to have rectal cancer, but it is the accumulation of a density that is indicative of a blockage in the system that has not allowed for the free flowing of the truth of who we are. So when vision is denied, when you don't see yourself as the truth of who you are, you're going to be confused with cause and effect. Instead of you realizing that you're the cause of the effect that you're experiencing, you think the effect happened to you and it was caused by somebody else. Do you realize how disempowered that makes us? How weak are we if others can make us feel, if others have power over what happens in our body? Well, that is what so much of the world right now is experiencing, this incredible fear that they've been made sick by something external, when in reality, the virus outside is a reflection of the virus inside. It's nothing more than wrong thinking out here, projected out there as a wrong belief. And the Holy Spirit, God's Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, uses everything that the ego can use for harm, Holy Spirit can use for good. So when you look at the lockdowns, ego says, okay, I'm going to control these people. I'm going to lock them down. I'm going to make them not connect with one another. And I'm going to make them fear each other because they're going to make each other sick. That's what the ego is saying. What's the Holy Spirit saying? Oh, we're going to be locked down. We're going to be in our houses, more time to be quiet, more time to go inside, more time to connect with my family members, more time to talk to the people that I live with. So it's an opportunity to utilize that to create an effect based on what you want to cause. With vision, then you have a different result. When you don't have vision, when it's blocked, and by not having vision, you operate with wrong thinking. You now are believing that somebody else is controlling you versus you having control of a situation, and use it for your higher good. So as we progress through the Course in Miracles, more and more and more, the lesson is really, truly, we are powerful beyond measure, truly powerful beyond measure. And as we continue to see the surfacing of the effects that have been caused through our disempowerment by saying others have power, as we see more and more of how they use that power that we gave them, we are going to begin to see the ugliness that happens when one assumes that they have more power over others. So the world has to see, not only did we give them power, but they used it because we participated in believing that they could use it against us. And right now we have, I'm going to say maybe 30-40% of humanity feeling their desire for sovereignty. And that's enough to shift the balance of dark and light on the planet, energetically speaking. But it is not enough to really stop what's happening. For that, we need more of us to take a deliberate commitment to participate, back to the responsibility to participate in reminding these people that work for us that they work for us and they're supposed to represent our desires. But we haven't been able to do that because we got brainwashed into giving them all of our power. And we have to come back inside, center ourselves, come inside, find the voice of the ego, realize that it is only keeping us disconnected from the truth of who we are. And one of the most uncomfortable things that we're ever going to do is recognize that we really are powerful beyond measure. But that power is not to go out there and bash somebody. It's a gentle power. It's truly a Gandhi kind of a power, Martin Luther King Jr. kind of a power. It's a Jesus kind of a power. And this is where a big test comes in. Are we willing to let ourselves be crucified because we realize that we're not a body, we're free? To whatever degree you are on that on that path, we have to be honest. If I need to defend and protect my body because I am afraid, we need to be honest about that and then protect the body with honesty. If we are no longer attached to the body, and if the cancer is going to take me, if the COVID's going to take me, if the vaccine's going to take me, whatever comes my way, I can meet it no matter what, because I'm not a body, I am free. That's to the degree that we really are free, because we have to free our minds first of attachment to this physical body. And once we're no longer attached to this physical body, we begin to experience the freedom that allows us to really stand and have total responsibility for creating the world that we want to experience. And all of us who want to free ourselves want to experience a world, a government that is honoring that, taking us back to what it's already written by our founding fathers, and have people who will abide by that. They're there to uphold that is what we the people experience. But that's not going to happen until we the people realize that we deserve to have what we want. And for that, we've got to come inside and look at what the ego has done. Yes, Vern.
There we go.
Yeah.
I just can't let this piece go. I'm very, for myself personally, I'm not concerned about protecting my body or, any of that. I mean, I've gone past that I think for years now, a long time ago. But if I sacrifice myself, I'm going to do it for what I would call the higher good. In other words, for the concept of freedom, for the concept of because without that environment, I mean, that's our responsibility. It goes beyond us. I mean, the whole idea behind if I step up, it's going to be not to protect me or make sure I have what I want, because I have what I want and I know I can create it. But there's something bigger than just me. And that's why I would be stepping up and putting my life on the line, in a sense, to make sure that we have the freedoms because without that, nothing means anything as far as I'm concerned. You can have love and light all you want to, but if you're not free, you don't have love and light. It's a fallacy. So I just wanted to just share that. That's all.
Well, and that freedom is the freedom to not be attached to the body. You know, that's what Jesus did. Jesus didn't mind having the body be crucified because it was for the greater good. But here's something that's we have to wrap our heads around. Jesus started the very movement that we are in right now 2,000 years ago. It's taken that many years for the momentum to bring us to the point that we are today. That means we are the second coming of the Christ. Christ came then and taught us we're not bodies. We are the resurrected free self. So yes, Vern, we've had many people in history do that. Gandhi didn't mind sacrificing his body. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't mind sacrificing his body. Those people all knew. John F. Kennedy knew he was sacrificing, putting his life on the line. When you are okay putting your life on the line, that is because you really are free. You're no longer attached to that body. And actually, we need more people who are at that level of freedom, because it is going to require, I think that we're headed towards an altercation. It's coming. It has to come, because it is a battle, biblical, between love and light. It's a battle, not between love and light, between dark and light. And it is a battle that we really are going to have to bring forth the might of the physical aspect, because so many are still physically, attached to their physical vessel. But that's a good thing, because they are also going to add to those who are no longer attached to our bodies and are willing to do whatever it takes for the greater good of all. I have my little grandson, Ryder. I'm in his room. Being a grandmother, it just absolutely took my determination to do whatever it takes. And I too, if this body vessel encounters a bullet or encounters whatever it encounters in the name of freedom for all, I'm okay with that. I totally have come to the place like you, Vern. It doesn't matter, because I'm not afraid of death. I'm not a body. And that's the thing. I am not a body, and it's okay. God used me however you need to use me. And oh my gosh, that gives me total freedom to say and be and do whatever it is that I feel like saying and being and doing. And thank you all so much for being part of this conversation. Please share any nuggets that you might have picked up from tonight or today. LaTanya, did you get some nuggets from this conversation, being your first time here with us?
Absolutely, I did. Truly enjoyed myself. Even that last statement you said, where I'm not afraid of death. I even came to that conclusion some time ago, maybe last year, 2 years ago. I'm not afraid of death because I know what's over there. Usually, people are afraid of death because they're afraid of the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Or hell, or the story of hell.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So, wow, that gave me chills right there.
Well, LaTanya, I send out a text to let people know, for this group that comes regularly, I send out a text with a link. So if you want to be my newsletter, just make sure that you communicate with me and give me your email address and your phone number. You can put it in the chat box and I'll just copy it from there and add you to the list. Who else wants to share of a nugget you might have picked up from today's conversation? Lisa, what did you get today?
It just reaffirmed my faith in the fact that my journey in this lifetime, whatever my God, higher power source has for me, that I can do it with complete faith and trust, because I'm not a body. And it's a vessel to get me to do my purpose. But I don't have fear. I was at my 12-step program the other night, and I just want to share this really quickly. It was a newcomer, and she has a loved one at the end of life because of the disease of alcoholism. And she asked me, you know, how are you handling all this? You're so calm, and you know, you are so grounded in, you know, your belief and your faith. And I said, you know, I had a mother. My mother passed away a month ago, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that her soul is in a beautiful place. And I trust the fact that when I'm gone physically from the body, I am not gone from the soul. That the soul, she is here with me. And I think just from the beginning, and I said this earlier, from the Course of Miracles and just working from the book and your lessons, it has just reaffirmed my faith and my trust in Source, and you know, this beautiful experience we're having on this planet. So it just, I think it's being projected on my journey to others.
Oh, that's wonderful. You know, faith and fear are totally opposite frequencies. And, you know, fear is a block to faith, true faith. And what we're going to be experiencing more and more and more is that the things that we had faith in, external, are going to continue to be taken away, are going to continue to be clamped down. And the division now really what is happening is that the racism is medical racism. It's, you know, vaccine racism. You got vaxxed, you know, you didn't get vaxxed. And if you don't buy into any of that story that the ego is attempting to create, see, the ego is not very creative. This is old stuff. It's repeating. If you know, what was so eye-opening for me is when I began to read about what Marxism is all about, when I began to read what happened in Germany, what happened with the Nazis, it is a repetition right here, right now. And when you can see anything that is repeated is of the ego, which means there's control, there's power, there's money, because you can't worship two masters. And if you're going to have faith in God, you cannot hurt anybody. You can't control anybody, because you know we're all free. We're eternal. What is there to control? But when there's something that is repetitive, you can be certain that the ego is doing the same thing it thought it got away with before. It's going to try and do it again, only a little bit bigger. And this is a really interesting way to see how asleep we have been. It didn't wake us up when 6 billion Jews were killed. That just wasn't big enough to make us go, what's, you know, how did this happen? How could that happen? It wasn't enough. Now we may need 6 billion people dying from the jabs or the whatever before we wake up, because that's how dense the sleep is. It means that we really have been so conditioned that, yeah, there's a bad apple. Hitler was the bad apple, but all the other government people, they're good. They take care of us. Look, after all, they go to war with bad countries. You know, they go and bomb Iraq and on our behalf. Aren't they good to us? You know, they care about us. Never really fully understanding the business of war, never fully understanding that all of that is show for other things that are happening that we pay for. So we have a lot of atoning to do. We have been the ones who have been financing a lot of the darkness that we are little by little going to be seeing that is happening. So we've got to forgive ourselves for the role that we played. It wasn't them, because they never could have done it if we didn't give our power. Remember from the beginning, I said the ego has two sides of the same coin. For those bullies to do their thing, they needed the victims to give them our power. And that is a major atoning. We participated in this, not to beat ourselves up, but to see how powerful we are. Because that's how we gave our power away. And for us to have the freedom back, we have to take responsibility for the fact that we gave it away. We just wanted to play the game that way. And we play the game that way, and now we're tired of that game. So to create a new game, we've got to recognize our part in it. And that to me is part of the excitement about what's happening when people are waking up. They're realizing how freaking powerful we are, and that's exciting. But thank you all so much for being here today. And if you're not getting my newsletters, please make sure you email me so that I can add you to that, because that's where I'm going to start listing the talks and events and also the socials. I think that it's once a month we should get together socially just to connect. And at that space, you know, if everybody can bring a little snack, we can have a very casual get together and share what are we doing. So it's not a formal class, it's not a speaker, it's just strictly a connection with like-minded people, and talk about what we're doing and how are we getting through things in person, not just on Zoom. So thank you all so much. Latanya, thank you for coming today.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Laina.
Laina. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye,
Appreciate
everybody.
it.
Boy, that little
Enjoyed it.
baby.
Thank you.
See
Thank you.
Yes,
We didn't get to see Ryder.
I know. Mama came and grabbed him so quickly.
He's gonna get so big. He's gonna get so big we won't recognize him.
Oh my gosh, he already
I
is.
bet. Yeah, just
He-
by week to week, probably. Wow.
It's amazing. He's 3 months old, and later on, if not today, tomorrow, we've got to get rid of all the 3-month-old clothes. He doesn't fit in he's now in all 6-month clothes. And my
Wow.
daughter was like, about things he didn't even wear, you know, things he got in baby shower, he hasn't been able to wear. So now we're going to go to the 6 and 9-month outfits.
Get him to become a nudist. You won't have that problem.
There you go.
That's
There
one way
you
of keeping the
go.
wardrobe current.
Laina,
That
keep,
is.
I have a grandson.
Yeah, that's what you guys are having?
I don't know, but if we are,
Oh,
Oh, there you go. Pass it.
Yes.
That's a resources.
they'll know in
Yes.
another week or so. I'm meeting her this weekend. She's coming to Atlanta, so we're
oh,
excited.
fun. Yes, she's saving them, you know, in case they have a second one, but also, you know, to share. So beautiful. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. See you next
Bye.
Thank
week.
you. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.